2016 onward would place me at an unpermissive alienation and point in my cognition where everything that one had to ask about and no longer had to worry about all the time made question about what little time was worth to someone whom strangely was now in a position to ask that. I was stuck, and the world and internet culture especially was in entropy and engaging in an exchange of its knowledge bases and thoughts. And the seriousness of my predicament of being a person of hate and implication to things around him, was coming to grasp. I am an extremophile like a tardigrade is, when it comes to abuse. Disciplines and perspectives came from that. I meditated desperately to get in control of my thoughts, self-inflicting and overly receiving movement. The equally serious problem of being directly in conjunction with perceptual and aggressive convergences in internet culture, humbling my prior life's cavalier youth. I used to be a rather under-considerate musician. So, to establish a principle of context, I'd say that rambunctiousness coming out of naivety and into insight about questions around things like, why we might destroy ourselves one day, and why are we this way, and why do we misunderstand this so often. More personally, where my own life's worth of cognitive and onlooking regard made for what nature's eye respected. You ask what position anyone was in to be there and why this should be so implicating. Maybe it's not the one that could know everything, but it's the one that was there. It's slightly off-putting at first, but I find sense in what would define itself after. I felt I could grasp reality more consequentially, and reality and perception was at question. All the same, I decided that between the putting my own mental health together and making sense of the fact no one else was making sense of what they were doing, that I would engage the courses, and at the same time be the undercoherently yet implicating mediation of something as it was relatively in motion anyways. From Alan Watts, to crash courses on history, economics and many other world issues and of course the sciences, Alain de Botton was mediating. Philosophy is recollection of things I had to work with from times before, and making pursuit out of my time. Psychology, cognizance, introspection were the medium in which humans were asked about. The world was between and amongst itself. In its spectrums. The internet was on fire, and there was a cognizant element that I had mentioned shifted and became self-sustaining and perceptually implying of human facet. And my situation, seemingly implying to things outside me. The world was suspicious as well as slightly urgent, and while I was mediating what had started so anomalously, I predicated much of my time on human life's predicaments. My own relationships to nature assumed a more intimate and observational stance. Organism, entity and the deductively aphorismic. I will come to appreciate the humbling of size in life and spend much time in the presence of life and underneath sky and atmosphere. I will be up close and personal with it. But also undertakings understanding in scientific literacy, and grandeurs of knowing. There was an environmental interest in my life. I never thought I would find myself embracing things and the relinquishing of others this way. All I had were days in what I was being honest with now, at age 26. Who I wasn't, being an issue of contentment now. But I was trying to mediate something in public uncomprehending, yet receiving. I would come to sell equipment for Christmas gifts in a later year and my mind would become so old that it forgot what it meant to be romanticizing. But not right now. Dimension and periphery are the time's human elements. And if I may use the word dimension to refer to the psychologically relative relationships to the preceding first person, especially in a world and culture, where that extra dimension extends into virtual creativity, my generation's forte. I must stress who skeptical and inquisitively immersed people are at any place in life here. The window into our medias would come to emulate a large part of that generation's almost otherly psychological element. Over the course of time, the complexity of subject matter would undergo its own confluences, and subculture, and the development of where relatability to it and ourselves would also develop in complexity. At this time, intellectually, I am conveying misunderstandings and mental quality, but also establishing more universally comprehensible subjects. Initially, if concept is language, then perhaps what is strange, and misunderstood about natures, was something intuitively and subculturally relatable, and we could recognize its subjectivity, from several angles. But this is a relativism of context as well, and this was the young immersion. Nature is already such a privately contemplated thing, culturally, subculturally, whose information is reciprocating what? This is a chaos, by its nature, the fact anything was noticeable at all is what's implicating. But rest assured, control is not the question here, it is very illusory, and uncontrol is in motion. As this was a plethora of things, and ideas anyone could be cognitively engaging at any age, it's the relative conditional and multifaceted of people describing, creating and skeptics alike, that the qualities and intelligences of perspective would come, but this paradigmed emphasis of spectrum is rather self-sustaining now. As I said earlier, interposition is relative, I do not know everything there is to know about everything about everyone, and I am not the mode of control to impart or impress with an universal. Why I should know anything about anything is a personal, circumstantial and solemn issue. What they were doing sometimes had less to do with identifying the origin of an anomaly, and more to do with the consequence of what they themselves were expression of.